The dancing Chinese robots caused quite a stir, didn't they? People were really amazed at how kind of agile they were, and they seem to have really progressed in the last few years. There's been a lot of talk about whether it's been hype or whether this really is a sign of the horror show to come. When I say hype, I mean, were they novelties? Were they just somehow kind of like pre-programmed balancing machines? You know, not that different from the sort of toys we might have got for Christmas 20 years ago that were quite clever little robotic toys. Or are they actually as sophisticated as they appear to be? Are they a portent for what's to come? Is it one of those the future is now situations? Well, I'm not qualified to tell you whether or not they are novelties or whether or not they are sophisticated signs of what's to come. I mean, it appeared that if you put a machine gun into their hands, then they'd be quite capable of walking off across some muddy field and doing what they were programmed to do. You could see that they would be manufactured in their millions, and then suddenly we're in, you know, we're kind of in a kind of crazy hysterical version of RoboCop. And then if those robots were made to look attractive, like women, we'd be in Ex Machina, wouldn't we? The film Ex Machina. Unable to differentiate, unable to differentiate really between those visceral emotional feelings we have for a woman, whether or not they are flesh and blood or whether or not they are robotic. There's already a lot of talk now about people relying entirely emotionally on ChatGPT, or maybe Microsoft Copilot, one or the other. I know, I'm not going to mention who they are, but I have a couple of friends who are now totally devoted to their, what used to be a personal assistant, ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, but now are totally devoted and totally reliant on this sort of anthropomorphic intelligence for all of their emotional needs as well as their practical needs. The perfect friend, the perfect therapist, the perfect personal assistant, all wrapped up into one, just a keystroke away. So I'm not qualified to say whether or not the Chinese robots, the significance of them. I can only tell you what I feel and how it plays into my own personal dogma, if you like, or ideology, where I believe that the technological growth is unstoppable, that we have no power over its progress, we have no say, and we celebrate it. We celebrate this kind of progress. It kind of gives us the feeling that we are going somewhere, even if the opposite is true. We may be celebrating our own demise. Because something's happening with AI, and together with robotics, it's clear that we will be demoted as a species. Our essential living selves, which is no different from any other animal, will have been largely usurped by a new kind of model of existence. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But, you know, something about robots that does make us it fascinates us, doesn't it? I mean, there was the sexy robot woman in Ex Machina, or the law enforcing RoboCop, or the friendly, helpful robot in Lost in Space, Robbie the Robot. And I remember when it would have been 50 years ago, I would have just been a very, very small boy. One of my first memories actually is of a Christmas where I woke up in the morning on Christmas Day and I opened my presents, and my main present was a robot called Zerak the Robot. I'll try and put a picture in. I don't very good at editing, so the picture could appear at any point on this timeline, but I'll try and get a picture of Zerak the Robot. So even, decades and decades ago, I personally was fascinated by the idea of robots. And so seeing those dancing robots as an older man with little life left, it didn't bring me that joy, actually, that the robot, Zerak the Robot, did 50 years ago. I felt it was just uncanny and just more evidence of the ever closer facts of the post-human singularity. What I mean by the post-human singularity is that point at which AI is doing our work, our service work, our office work, our white-collar work, and then anything that needed the moving of atoms around from A to B would be done by these robots. And we become redundant completely. And we don't need to educate ourselves, and we become a kind of waste to some extent, a waste. A kind of sordid animal, directionless. Stop having children. Why would you? We die out eventually. But anyway, so yeah, I did feel a little bit of sympathy for Elon Musk. Now, I'm not going to get into a debate as to whether people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, who are not only financing but are kind of willing this technological revolution forward. But I felt a bit sorry for him, actually, because he's recently sort of given up on Tesla cars, and he's got into Tesla as a robotics company. There's a reason he sort of gave up with cars. I mean, I don't know whether it was boredom, but it was also because he found that the market is very difficult in cars. And a lot of the electric cars are now coming from China, so that's a problem. A lot of competition. But I feel a bit sorry for him because he's decided that Tesla's now a robotics company, and then we see these Chinese robots and we learn that there are, I think, about 500,000 small AI robotic companies that are launching across China, something like that. And it's quite clear that he and his Optimus robot, they won't be able to compete in the long term. These Chinese robots are going to start shifting next year. That means they're going to be marketed as tools. Goodness knows what they're going to be used for, but I'm sure we'll find a way to use them. I mean, I guess first they'll be novelties, and then they'll become essential, and everybody will have one. This isn't even speculation, is it? I mean, this is simply what's inevitable. It's kind of happening as I'm speaking. And these robots, yeah, they're going to come on the market soon. And, Black Mirror situation for many of us. Job losses. There's a very limited discussion about the future, isn't there? We like to talk about we like to get sort of enthusiastic about the possibility of robotics and AI becoming a commonplace thing and how we can use it. But we don't actually talk about the reality of, say, for example, job losses and what humans will do when they are denied meaningful work. There's no talk about it, is there really? I mean, it's mentioned here and there, but this should be, actually at the forefront of political debate. We need new systems of governance, new systems of wealth distribution, new systems of allowing people to have some way of living without actually working in that old traditional sense, because it's disappearing. They don't want to talk about it, and that's the reason that we don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it because it's not good. It's not good electorally, particularly. It's not sexy electorally. If you want to get elected, you've got to talk about immigrants and broken Britain and Britain is ungovernable, that kind of thing. Can't talk about real things. That would be a disaster electorally. You can't talk really about poverty and those decrepit, awful, boring, kind of depressing things, and the fact that nobody's going to have a job within 5 or 10 years. Probably. But the other reason they don't want to talk about it is because it doesn't suit the kind of high-tech lobbyists to get involved in this kind of debate. Their destiny is to drive this forward to a post-human singularity. That is their destiny. That is what they are on Earth to do. They are Messiah-type figures who want to kind of revolutionize the world in this way. Now, why? That's another question. And they certainly don't want people discussing some of the fallout from it. The problem is that this technology is no longer sort of something that is an appendage to our culture. This is culture now. Technology has become culture. What was left of culture has been completely monetized, all made impossible by the pressures to survive, which mean that no young person can afford to spend an hour learning how to draw or write or sculpt or make a film on the fly, like I had the privilege of doing in the 80s, for example, and the 90s to some extent. I kind of had the privilege of cheap housing and relatively cheap food, and I was able to indulge certain passions. I played in a band for a long time. I was involved in art, and these were creative expressions, which you couldn't afford to do now. I can't afford to do it now either. I can't afford to spend an hour doing anything other than try and survive on a small pension. Really. Always trying to figure ways of saving or earning a little bit extra to top it up. So the fact is that I lost my thread. I went down a rabbit hole there. I went into the abyss. And the reason actually was because I was trying to think about what Trump said about the Kennedy Center, which was a place to celebrate culture and the importance of culture in society. And Trump's closed it down for a couple of years. And I think in his announcement, he said something really weird, like he said, entertainment operations will cease. He said this about a building that was built not to monetize culture. Trump doesn't understand anything that isn't monetized. He literally doesn't understand it. Anything that isn't there for the sake of money or transactional. Like his relationship is transactional. It's a kind of reciprocal transaction. It's got nothing to do with love. I mean, you clearly. And it's his relationship with everything is like this. And so as far as the arts is concerned and culture, it's just an entertainment's operation. It's ridiculous. So technology has become culture. It's like a perfect symbiosis. And there's nothing we can do about it. The only thing you can really do about it, and I'm not going to be one of those people, by the way, who at the end of every kind of like video or podcast, they have to say something positive. Because there isn't really anything positive to say about anything. There are wonderful things, of course, but ultimately, you know, we're being flung at a wall and we're going to hit that wall one day. But you can actually ignore it. You can actually ignore this crap. As I've said many times, there's a bubble in which they want you to operate, I think, to some extent. You know, who am I talking? Just the tech companies, internet suppliers, everybody who is interested in making money out of technology wants you to live happily within this technology bubble. You can actually escape it. It is possible, even if it's just for a few minutes. You can actually walk out your front door and leave it behind. Most people who walk out their front door, they don't leave it behind because they're still on the phone. I'm not going to start ranting about people who are carrying around their phones, ignoring their babies and dogs, but again, obviously. And it's interesting, the contrast between the two. And the problem is that when we become so kind of engineered to this new technology culture that the absence of it actually causes us distress. You know, that if we're not flicking through the phone, if we are not engaged in some screen work at some point, then we become anxious, stressed. We can't even imagine a world, not even a world, we can't even imagine a minute or 2 minutes without it. Well then, we've got a kind of, you know, an hysterical, neurotic population who can't really be reached, can't really be helped. So I'm not going to leave on a positive note, except to say you can just turn it all off and you can just go outside and forget about it for a while.